I'm Caroline Adderholt from Alabama. My husband's Robert Adderholt, and we have two children. He represents the 4th District of Alabama.
My husband is Juan Ciscomani. He represents Arizona's 6th Congressional District, and we have 6 children.
Joanna Knott, I'm married to Brad Knott, and we represent District 13 in North Carolina. And we have 2 little girls, Bunny, who is 3, and Toller is 5.
I'm Natalie Heisinger. My husband's Bill Heisinger. We have been in for 8 terms, 16 years. We have 5 kids. We live in Holland, Michigan.
I'm Robin Allen. I'm from Augusta, Georgia. And we have 4 grown kids and 14 grandchildren. And we're going to have a grandbaby in September. And we have been here 6 terms.
Being in politics can be really hard, especially now with the internet. How do you protect your kids from the political attacks that land on your family?
I think they've gotten used to it over time, and they've developed some tough skin. For when they don't read it, they try not to pay attention to it or read any of it. They're just happier that way. But I think they realize it goes with the territory. It's just part of it. Mm-hmm. And by God's grace, they've handled it really well.
Our youngest is 7, our oldest is 17, so we kind of are in different seasons of life with all of them. Mm-hmm. But once they reach adolescence, it's harder to shield them from the negative attacks. I think most of all, it's tuning it out and really actively practicing forgiveness and realizing it's not, not to take it personally or internalize it, but really to forgive people. Okay, so let's talk about that perennial question. Should a member's family live in their home state district, or should the family be together in Washington, D.C.?
We decided we wanted to continue with school in our community because these are people who've known us before politics. And so instead of being Congressman Donald's kids, as they would be up here, they were Byron and Erica's kids.
I always thought it would be exciting to live in D.C., but there's so much criticism if you're not in your home district.
We raised our kids here because we felt it was very important for Robert to have a more normal pattern with them, and we could do that here.
So Juan will bring the kids one-on-one for a week every year, and the kids are able to see what he does. So when they're at home, they understand that, oh, he's on the floor voting. If I say, oh, dad's taking a vote right now.
I think that it's so special for the kids to see what they're doing here. Yeah. Brandon has loved taking Marigold to the floor to vote. We do wreak havoc on the office a lot with the little kids with crumbs. But I think it is so special for them to get to be part of it so that they can look back later and see, wow, like they were part of history in a way.
I still remember my kids would see, when Fox News puts the picture of the Capitol, and then they would say, oh, look, it's Daddy's office. That's a pretty amazing thing, and it's very clear that you guys really appreciate that. Everybody here, you can tell, loves their spouse. But this is a hard job to keep a marriage together because there is this distance. And the distance isn't just between Washington, D.C. and your district, but then your husband comes home and you don't actually get your husband because he's got to travel the district and he's got to raise money. How do you protect your marriage in this environment?
I think that you have to really communicate with each other and be very open and be very intentional and deliberate about making time for one another, because there is really no time, especially in this new position.
Yes.
We always say it's a season of zero downtime in service, and we're up for that, but it can be challenging at times.
How many years you been married, Robin?
52.
That's amazing.
You have to be intentional. You have to say, okay, now we have to sit down and like Rick says, it's like a company meeting, just a board meeting that you have. You take care of your company that way. We need to take care of our family and our marriage in the same way. So we have to be intentional.
We're all, like you said, flexible. We all roll with it, but I think it's really tough to find those times. But we were great about family times with the kids. I always called them forced family fun days. You're all going to be home, but we're going to have fun.
I really do think at the end of the day, it's like faith in God, because there's nothing we can do that's going to outline our path in this. And so, of course, prayer, regardless of what city you're in, going to church, whether you're in Texas, being at your home church, even if you're traveling, making sure you go to church there.
We both are very intentional about praying for each other. And then he is really intentional about taking me out on a date every single time he's home.
Great.
And that has been life-giving for us and for our marriage.
I think people who pray together stay together, and we practice that. You have to be intentional no matter where or what God has called you to do, and even more so when you have a high-pressure position like this. But everyone has to be intentional and stay in tune with God and in tune with their spouse at all times.
I want to also acknowledge that we're not the only people. Congressional spouses aren't the only spouses in America that have very challenging lives and families and schedules. And I think it speaks more to what, women in America now are doing so much. And I guess I want them to be encouraged by us, and they encourage us that, we're all in this together, and just give everybody a lot of grace.
So first of all, the reason why we timed it this way is every year there is a congressional spouse luncheon for the First Lady. And that happened that day. So I knew I could get, everyone in town. And that's a bipartisan club. And we're going to talk about this a little bit in part 2 tomorrow. But, the spouses get together. They support one another. It was really special for me to interview them because I know I'm a cabinet spouse right now, but I will always feel like a congressional spouse because 10 years of my life I was. And listening to their stories was heartwarming. I got a little bit of PTSD, I'm not going to lie. Those
From
are
what, from what, though? Because
It's hard.
we were watching that. Charlie asked you, what's the hardest part of being a spouse? And I thought that was a really interesting question.
It's the distance. And I think you hear it in these women's voices when I ask them about how do you keep the marriage together. You are really, when you're home in your district, it's like you're a single mom. Handling it all because they're gone most of the week. And then, as I said, when they come back, they're traveling the distance. And I love that Carolyn Adderholt, who's the most veteran of all of the congressional spouses you saw there, she said, we're not the only ones. I mean, we have military spouses and their husbands are off at war right now. And, this is not to make it sound like it's the same thing, but it is very taxing on families. It's taxing on kids. And the spouses carry the weight of that. And so anyway, it just was so lovely to sit down with them, and they're all really good people. And I hope people feel good about Congress watching this because meeting the spouses tells you a lot about.
Well, it's certainly a reminder of how difficult it is to find really good people who are willing to make those sacrifices. And we're very grateful to those good people who do make those sacrifices. And we'll be watching more of it tomorrow.
No, actually, I thought that part 2.
No, later today.
Part 2 is actually later today. I thought we were going to do part 2 tomorrow, but actually we're going to do part 2 later in the show.
Nice.
And we'll
So
learn
stay
more
tuned.
about that.
We will learn more.